All right, hello everybody, Emily here. So this week's discussion was all about Toronto's vulnerabilities when it comes to climate change, um, and what ways the city might be vulnerable, as well as what will happen in the future if changes are not made. So I did a little bit of research into this, as we all did, and I read about uh, the pledges that Toronto has made on the C40 website in regards to equity, good food, net zero carbon buildings, um, as well as the urban nature declaration. So that's like what we were talking about with city planning and that kind of stuff last week. And those are all really good things. It seems like they've made a lot of progress and they really take it seriously. But a couple of things that I found that they are vulnerable on has to do with the food system in case of emergencies, climate emergencies, as well as overall health vulnerability as the climate changes. So, to get into the food system aspect of it, Toronto is vulnerable to extreme weather events, in particular, heavy rain leading to flooding. And this has a particularly severe impact on the food distribution system because what they call the Ontario Food Terminal, I'm pretty sure that's where most of the food comes into the city. Um, I'll back up a little bit and say that Toronto's food is produced 90% outside of the city. Only 10% of the food is produced within the city. So any flooding or extreme weather event wouldn't really impact production within the city that much. But as I was saying about the Ontario Food Terminal, most of the food that comes into the city comes through that terminal. So if that terminal were to flood, that would have a major impact on the food system. And it also does not have good backup power. So that could be a pretty big disaster. And another part of this is that food banks, which people usually rely on in the case of standard disasters, have already been a little bit overloaded due to the COVID pandemic. They're serving a lot more people than they usually do for a lot longer period of time. So food banks are struggling, and the city needs a lot more planning to ensure good coordination and communication in case of a food emergency. Next, regarding the health vulnerability, this is a major issue as the climate gets warmer because older individuals, adults, and older individuals, infants, and young children, as well as those with chronic illnesses and the socially disadvantaged, meaning low income or homeless people and that kind of stuff, they're particularly sensitive to heat related issues during the summers. As we're having generally warmer temperatures and warmer and longer summers, it's becoming a real priority to make sure that people have adequate shelter, heating and cooling. And another issue that arises related to health and high temperatures is the increased risk of communicable diseases, which I found a chart that kind of outlines some of the diseases that have the potential to crop up more as temperatures get warmer. But the socially disadvantaged people are particularly vulnerable to this because, due to financial reasons, as well as other things, they're just less able to adapt to the changing temperatures. So these two major issues require a lot of work to be done on communication and inclusion, as well as outreach, and then distribution strategies for food, water, shelter resources, as well as inclusive education on the issues. The future risks, if Toronto were to continue business as usual, as the prompt says, then, as I said, disadvantaged individuals and families will be most impacted by this, by severe weather and heat and illness. And again, there might be major disruptions in the food system, as well as flooding. Flooding is increasingly becoming a risk for the city, So if they don't do a lot of work to make sure that the infrastructure is able to handle it, particularly like basement businesses and warehouses and that kind of stuff, that could be a major problem. So Toronto's taking a lot of steps to work on this, but those seem to be some of the major vulnerabilities that they face at this time.